Steven Gingras.
Thank you. My name is Steven Gingras. I am a Boston College graduate, a board fellow 2 years ago, and I'm currently a freshman at Boston College. Candidates, violence, and gun violence especially, is a prevalent and pressing issue in many urban neighborhoods throughout Boston. Although the Boston Police Department has done much in the past 20 years, one can still say that any crime still prevalent in Boston is still too much. Would you, in the City Council, support peace education programs, or anything else you may suggest, in schools as part of the remedy? The communities affected would like to know your answers.
Start with you, Mike.
Sure. Seems like they're giving a lot of these ward fellow things out, so I'm going to congratulate them on going to BC. That's my alma mater, so congratulations. Yes, obviously I have experience.
They don't have co-op. Go back there and tell them. That's co-op.
So as a former prosecutor, I learned a long time ago we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of the problem and spend some time as a juvenile point prosecutor. So I know the root and cause of a lot of crime, particularly violent crime, is substance abuse. It's lack of hope and opportunity, and it's a criminal record where you can't gain employment, so there's not a lot of hope and opportunity. So there's this cycle, which then becomes a recycle spree of violence. So I would support dispute resolution form of coursework in our Boston Public Schools. I also subscribe that our street workers are one of our best and biggest advocates to diffusing conflict, and I'd like to see one male, one female street worker assigned to some of our more dangerous schools as a pilot program, and if it works, then to include them in all of our schools from grades 7 through 12. They get the up-to-date intel at its infancy, well before it spills out into the streets on the weekend. So I would be very supportive of having that added to our Boston Public Schools.
We have, from 1992 to 2008, we saw violent crimes and crimes across the board in the city of Boston reduced by 50%. We've made great progress on that, but you are right. We have seen an uptick in gun violence. Gun violence is something that's very near and dear to me. When I started my first political campaign in California, the woman I worked for became mayor of San Francisco when Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone were shot. So I went to Washington, D.C. as a student who was in inner city in Los Angeles during one of the most violent eras, and talking about gun violence and how it affected our community on the assault weapons ban. I think that we need to take serious measures here to address this. The kids are the shooters between the ages of 18 and 22 are the shooters, and the victims are between the ages of 22 and 26. And we need to look for ways to intervene. I don't think we can start at high school when we're addressing the dropout rate. I think evaluating kids for trauma and violence in the school process, making where should get wraparound services, one way for us to intervene. I have a lot more ideas on that, but my time's over.
Hey, I'm also an Eagle, so congratulations, me, Mike, and you. Make a formative trio in the City Council if you decide to run too. Anyway, I do agree with having some sort of a peace education plan, definitely in the Boston Public Schools. I'm an attorney for the last 14 years. I've represented kids in Roxbury and West Roxbury courts. They all have seen one of three things in common: Boston Public Schools, single-parent family, or they've been subjected to violence because of where they're from. I think what I'd like to see is to get the Boston police more involved with kids in the public schools, not arresting them, because you cannot arrest your way out of a problem, period. But forming some sort of community policing program in the school where kids who might be at risk, they can identify right away, find out what's going on with this kid, why they're getting into trouble, etc. Maybe offer them some sort of a job down at the police station, a cadet program, etc. But I think a lot of the problems we see in the Boston Public Schools do come from the home, do come from the neighborhoods. We need to make these neighborhoods safe. We need more police in those neighborhoods, and again, not to arrest the kids, but to kind of, the old cop in the corner that talks to the kid, sees what's going on, because we can stop the problem that way before it even happens.
Former Councilor Flaherty's right. We can't arrest ourselves out of the problem, or arrest our way out of the problem, but we do have several programs that are federally funded that put cops in schools, Operations Street Safes, Operation Nightlife, and we are interacting in the schools with kids of all ages. Right now, our law enforcement. One of the reasons I started pilot payment in lieu of taxes reform was to strengthen partnerships in this city, and getting the my focus right now is to build a relationship between the middle schools and college students like yourself, a big brother, big sister relationship, because we find we're losing kids at the middle school level. They're good kids in the elementary school, and something happens, grade 5, 6, 7, where we lose them, 6, 7, 8, and we lose them, and that's when they get into gangs and drugs and all that other stuff. And having a positive role model, a college student, there are a lot of them here, partnering with middle school students would make a difference.
As you know, I'm a Boston Public High School teacher, and in my 12 years of teaching at East Boston High, we've had 8 students killed in gun violence. Countless more hurt in whether it's stabbings or assault and battery, and then many hundreds more, if not thousands more, that are just traumatized by what they've seen or witnessed or just been in the presence of. And I think it's incredibly important that schools have the autonomy to bring in peace curriculums or peace and trauma curriculums or outside organizations to help not just our students but our faculty through these cases, because as you know, it's incredibly awful and unimaginable what many of our students are going from day in and day out, and it can be equally awful for the staff. And I think that when a school has the freedom to bring in organizations like Lewis Brown Peace Institute from Dorchester into our schools, it helps all of our kids heal and get better. And what worries me the most as a teacher is not the kid that's acting out, but the kid that's suffering in silence, because they're so difficult to identify.
Michelle.
I absolutely support peace education in schools and components of that curriculum throughout the city. I think we need to have more crisis counseling and mental health services available in the schools too, in every single one of the schools, no matter what community they're in. And more importantly, we need to focus on supporting youth when they're outside of school too, when they're with families, when they're on summer vacation, making sure that we have enough funding for summer jobs and that we're engaging companies and organizations in Boston to fill the gaps when we need to put more youth in summer jobs during the school year as well. I see our neighborhood infrastructure as having huge potential to really reach families, especially when kids are just born or very young. Every single one of our community health centers should be a hub for information, and when that mom comes in with a newborn baby, they should be surrounded by services of all types, whether it's domestic violence or special education or access to a summer camp. And every single doctor visit should be not just about your height and weight, but about your emotional well-being, what you're doing outside of school, and we need to surround families.
Jack.
Great question. And this is my main reason why I'm sitting here running for Boston City Council. As my fellow candidates are probably sick of me hearing, we have to be around each other all the time, so we always hear our same stories and our same stump speeches. But you know, at the age of 16, I got hooked on OxyContin and eventually became a heroin addict and all the bad stuff that happens with that. And I can tell you that these issues they coexist with one another, and you know, you have someone who is involved in violence, that's an offset of poverty to a certain extent. That's the offset of an unhealthy neighborhood. Someone that gets involved in drugs is then more prone to get into criminal behavior, and it's like a cancer, and it spreads and spreads and spreads, and then you have problems that people who have no indirect or direct impact on any of these issues are now having their cars getting broken into, and are now, you know, their car insurance rates are going up and their health insurance rates are going up. So I have proposed on my website, one of the things that I would do, and I will not vote for the new mayor's budget if there is not an army of community health workers who are trained in every single high school in the Boston public school system. I will simply not vote on a mayor's budget, and I've been very clear about that. It's one of the biggest reasons I'm running. And so yes, I would support peace initiatives as long as they're efficient and they're good and not just out there to politically look good, but they're actually going to work.
So first, I appreciate the question very much, and I'd say in the discourse, one of the things I find very challenging is that we silo issues of violence. We need to recognize that the health of the individual, the family, and the community are inextricably linked, and whatever breaks at the bonds of community and erodes at the fabric of us is everyone's problem. The other issue, so it's not neighborhood versus neighborhood, it's everyone's problem. The other issue is that we have to understand that all these forms of violence are connected, so when we talk about street violence, please be just as committed to ending domestic violence and sexual violence. We have 130 gangs in the city of Boston. Most of those high-impact players will tell you that they grew up being raised in a single-parented household by a mother who was often abused at the hands of someone who said they loved them. Those young men are being raised by women, 1 in 4, who have experienced some physical or sexual trauma in their life, and that's just being passed on generationally. So here's what I've done. I've advocated for a greater investment in socio-emotional wellness supports because hurt people, and we've seen an increase in 5 school nurses. I led the charge for a comprehensive sex and health education curriculum to be adopted as a part of the wellness policy, which is is also about healthy relationships, because we are seeing an increase in intimate teen partner violence. So we have to address these things holistically. I support the curriculum. Louis D. Brown Peace Institute is great. Annissa, thanks for that shout out. But of course I would support any conflict resolution. Our students have to be good citizens, not just good students.
All right, thank you. I believe that I've run out of time to ask my second question, but I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I will hand this over to the governor to close. Thank you.